This conference will now be recorded. This conference will now be recorded.
Hello everyone, welcome to this webinar. Today we are going to discuss about guidance to food safety, weights and measurements. I am Yashi Srivastav. I will be the trainer for this program. Today I'm going to discuss on hygiene issues specific to food processing sectors. What are the FSSAI standard, as well as we are also going to discuss on weights and measurement regulations and registration. About myself, my name is Yashi Srivastav. I've done BTech in food technology. After that, I've done Masters in Dietetics and Food Service Management. I'm a national level resource person with FSSAI. I'm also a lead auditor for ISO 22000 for BRC. I'm impaneled as an auditor with multiple of certification bodies. I'm also impaneled as an auditor with FSSAI and working as a trainer for FOSTEC FSSAI. I'm handling an organization. My organization name is Yari Qualitech, in which we are working with system implementation, auditing, certifications, training, quality control setup, new project setup, and the overall development part. Okay, so let's get started with the term food. Food means any substance where processed, partially processed or unprocessed, which is intended for human consumption. As we all know, the food is something which we eat or we drink, all right. The beverages that are also considered as a food. When we talk about the term food safety means assurance that food is acceptable for human consumption as per its intended use. For whatsoever purpose the food is going to be, that has to be safe at the time of consumption. All right. Let's take an example of a peanut butter. Say suppose that this peanut butter is going for the special groups, and in that special groups, some allergen peoples are also there, those who are having the allergy with the peanut. In that case, certainly the peanut butter is not safe to them, right? So the food has to be safe. Okay, if we are providing the food which contain peanut butter, it can be in the form of bread spread, it can be in form of some other substituents, and it is giving to them to those persons who are having the allergy, that may not be safe to them. So we have to take all this special care, that require labeling, that require handling, that require processing aids, and so on, so on and so forth. So that all has to be implemented. And when we implement each and everything, then only we can call that our food is safe. If we take in general, the food safety hazards. So basically, there are 4 types of food safety hazards. The first is physical hazards. The physical hazards are those which contain the physical objects. The objects or the hazards which you can see, which you can feel, or which you can eliminate from your food item. For example, in the picture, you can see a nut bolt is there, right? So that's a physical hazard. The physical hazard, it has come to your product, and this product is contaminated with the physical hazard, that is a nut. Okay, the other example of physical hazards are glasses, water. Okay, the glass bottle, if it gets break, the glass will is scattered into the pieces. Okay, and that pieces can go on to the other food items. So the other physical hazards can be something, the hair, any dust, dirt, okay, the leaves, this threads, okay, broken nails, broken bones, all these things are the physical hazards. When we come to the chemical hazards are those which are there in the chemical form, that can be process induced, or that can also be the natural occurring chemical hazards. The natural occurring chemical hazards is the hazards which come naturally, but they are chemical in nature. For example, aflatoxins. They come naturally into the crop because of some circumstances, and the chemical, that is that aflatoxin, are having toxic. It is toxic in nature. The process induced chemical hazards can be something like grease, oil. It can be the pesticides, all right, the food adulterants. These all are the types of chemical hazards. When I talk about the biological hazards are those which are, which contaminate the product, which is not visible, but yes, the inherent property of the product get changed. It can be because of microorganisms, it can be because of viruses, fungal, okay. There are many factors which are responsible for the biological hazards. To summarize, we can term that as a fatum. Fatum belongs to F. F, that is food. Food is responsible for spoiling the food product. A, that is acidity. Most of the microorganisms grows well within the normal acidity range. So the 3.5 to 7 is the best suited range for the microorganisms, where in which the microorganisms grow very easily. So that is one of the factor. Then we have temperature. Some band of the temperature are termed as a danger zone. And what is that? We call that temperature range as 5 degrees centigrade to 63 degrees centigrade. 5 degree to 63 degrees centigrade is termed as a danger zone. What does that mean? That means the temperature in this temperature zone, the microorganisms grow well in between. Whereas if you decrease the temperature, that is the temperature which is less than 5 degrees centigrade, that temperature is not suitable for microorganisms growth. In that temperature range, the microorganisms will not grow. Okay, it will retard its growth. Whereas on the other hand, the temperature that is more than 63 degrees centigrade, at that temperature, the microorganisms get killed because of the high temperature. At this moment of time, we are not talking about the thermophilus bacteria, but yes, the normal range of the bacteria that get killed in the temperature more than 63 degrees centigrade, and thus we call that as a safe temperature. So less than 5, the microorganism does not grow well. At more than 63, the microorganisms get killed. But in between, it is the range where microorganisms can grow easily, very well. So that's why that is a danger zone. The next is time. The more time period you offered in the danger zone, the more probability is there for the food spoilage or the food contamination. So thus, we have to reduce the time which in this danger zone. And yes, you can keep the product for the longer time in the zone which is not the danger zone, that is less than 5 degrees centigrade and more than 63 degrees centigrade. And after that, in the fatum, there is a oxygen. Oxygen means oxygen. As we need oxygen to respirate, in the same way, microorganisms also require oxygen to survive. This does not account for the anaerobic bacteria, but for the aerobic bacteria, which are found, very oftenly, very easily on the food, they grows well on the food. So that's why if we pack the product in such a way which does not offer much of the oxygen, in that conditions, our food does survive for the longer times. And then we have M, that is moisture. Moisture is the main key factor for the food spoilage everywhere. The more your product contains moisture, the more it is susceptible for the microbial growth and so on the food contamination. And on the contradictory, if your product is having a less moisture content, then certainly your product will not be so much susceptible for the microbiological growth. All right. And the fourth hazard is allergen. Now, if we talk about the allergen, as per FSSAI in India, there are 8 allergens. Okay. This includes cereal containing glutens, sulfites, then we have milk and milk products, tree nuts, groundnuts, soya bean. All right. And in the non-veg category, we have uh, the non-veg categories. We have fish and fish products. Some crustaceans. Crustaceans are also the allergen and egg and egg products. So these are broadly the allergen which may be responsible for creating a food safety hazards. If I talk about the allergic product itself is not a bad food product. But yes, when it is consumed by those person who is allergic to it, that sometimes become lethal as well. So if I talk about the allergen in a food premises, it has to be considered with a very great seriousness. Okay. Now let's talk about the Schedule 4 Part 2 requirement. Why we are talking about this? It is because if I term hygiene, so that means hygiene is a broad term which has to be applicable for all food business operators, right? And with respect to the food business operators, if I talk about the all food business operators, that means I'm considering all type of food businesses, and thus the different factors which has to be considered for maintaining the hygiene and sanitation in the premises, that all we are going to discuss now. The general requirement on hygiene and sanitary practices to be followed by all food business operators applying for the license. This is the topic which is already described in Schedule 4, Part 2 of FSSAI. Okay, let us go in detail about it. The establishment in which food is being handled, processed, manufactured, packed, stored, and distributed by the food business operator and the person handling them should conform to the sanitary and hygienic requirement, food safety measures, and other standards as specified below. Right. It should also be deemed to be responsibility of a food business operator to ensure adherence to necessary requirement. If you are processing anything, then it is your responsibility that you should comply with all the necessary requirement which is there with respect to your product. Let us go in detail with one by one topic. Okay. So the very first topic is location and surrounding. Food establishments should ideally be located away from the environment pollution and industrial activity that pose a threat of contamination to food areas that are prone to infestation of the pest, or where waste, either solid or liquid, can be removed effectively. In case there are hazards of other environment polluting industries located nearby areas, appropriate measures should be taken to protect the manufacturing area from any potential contamination. So many a times the industries where food industries is located, if your industry is surrounded by some other things which is very prone for the infestation, so in that case a special take care has to be taken by the facility owner to protect the premises from the pest attack. The manufacturing premises should have a direct access, should not have any direct access to the residential area. Yes, the food premises should not have any direct access. That means the facility should not be there in a residential area. So what are the different requirements pertaining to this? It is the premises inside a structure or the internal road should be tarred or the concrete to avoid any accumulation of the dust, dirt, or anything. Okay. Then the plant should have the entrance. Okay. And at the entrance, there has to be the washing station, what we call is hygiene station. What we mean by hygiene station is that a station which should have a soap, liquid soap, a running water, and a dryer for washing hands. That accounts for the hygiene station. So whenever whosoever is entering into the premises, they should always have this, wash their hands first and then only enter into the premises. Then there should not be any stagnant water near the surroundings. This stagnant water may create the infestation and it will invite more and more pests to come in. So that's why there should not be any stagnant water within the premises. There should always be a neat and clean surface. Okay, there should not be any vegetation in the near premises, because if a vegetation is there, that always attract the pest and it provide the place to hide. You know that these are the hidden places where the pest can hide. So that's why they should not be there. All the walkways should always be clear. It should be defined, like which way a person can move and which way the transport can move, so that we can always minimize the chances of accident. And yes, there will always be a proper discipline if we go in this manner. Now, point number 2 is design and layout of the premises. How should be the design? Okay. As far as possible, the layout of the food establishment shall be such that food preparation, manufacturing processes are not amendable to cross-contamination from one another. Okay, including pre and post manufacturing operations like good receiving, pre-processing, packing, washing, portioning, etc. So there should not be any cross-contamination between the products. That may includes the raw material and a finished product, the veg and non-veg, semi-processed and the processed material. So, in all terms, the product should not be any there should not be any cross contamination in between. So that's why the layout should be designed, usually it should be in a uniform flow, one-way flow. From one end, the raw material will enter. From the other, in the next step, it will go for the processing. After that, it will go for the packing, and then it will go, from the dispatch, it will go out. So, a U shape of a structure can be there, or a single structure, a single line product can be there, but there should not be any zigzag. Then what other thing which we have to consider in the establishment is it includes floor, ceiling and walls. It all should be maintained in a sound condition. It should be made up of impervious material. It should be smooth, easy to clean with no flaking paints or plaster. Right. Doors shall also be made of a smooth and non-absorbent surfaces. Adequate and proper drainage facility should be there, and the drainages shall flow in a direction opposite to the direction of a food manufacturing. Okay. The the flow of the drainage should always be in the opposite direction. Say suppose from one end to another, the process flows like raw material processing, packing and dispatch. So that drainage cannot flow like raw material processing, packing and dispatch. No. the drainage should always be in the opposite direction. Ideally, the drainage system should be such that it will not come from the low risk to high risk. It should not come from the low risk to the high risk. All right. So the drain water can go from packing to packing to processing, but the water flow in the drain should never be like processing to packing, because in the processing the microbial growth will be certainly high. In the packing, the microbial growth as compared to the processing will be less. So that's why the flow can be from low to high, not from high to low. So that's why the drainage should always be in the opposite direction. Adequate control measures should be in place to prevent pests from entering the processing area from the drains. Yes. So the different type of sieves should be there. Sieves and the this cockroach trap should be there, so that no pest or any insects can come from the drain pipe or from the drainage to the processing area or to the premises. So that all prevention we have to consider. When we talk about the windows and the doors, all opening to outside environment shall be well screened. It should Windows should be such that no pest or birds or anything will come from outside to inside. Okay, that should not be there. Then no person shall manufacture, store, or expose for the sale or permit the sale of any article of the food in any premises not effectively separated to the satisfaction of the licensing authority from any privity, urinals, sullage, drain, or the place of storage of a foul and a waste material. All right. So we cannot place our manufacturing facility in these premises. Yes. So this is the internal structuring. Clean, durable, impervious to moisture. It should be. There should not be any flaking plane. The flaking pane should not be there, right? Then the entry. The facility should have air curtains. The air curtain, importance of air curtain is this, that when we put air curtain, the flow of air should be such that any particle will move outwards. No, it should never move towards inside. So the flow of air should be such that there is a outward flow. So how you can determine this? You can put the piece of paper and then you can check the direction. It should always come outward side. It should never go to the inside area. Okay. And the benefit of the air curtain is that no insect can come if your air curtain is operation. Just because of a high velocity wind, the insects cannot come inside. Apart from the air curtain, you can also go for the PVC strips, this plastic strips. This will also prevent your product by not allowing any pest to go inside. Then we have automatic closing spring door system. We can also have a double door system, right? Next thing, if we talk about the ceiling should not have any flaking paint. Yes, you can have this modular type of structure, right? But in many cases, it should be, such that it is easy to clean and it is easy to reachable. Not only your wall, you should also clean your roof, because what will happen when the spider corpse or anything, if in any case the spider comes, the corpse will create. And if the facility is too high, then it creates a difficulty to clean this. That's why it should be such that it should be cleanable and should be very smooth. Now let's talk about the equipments and containers. It is made up of corrosion-free material and should be easy to clean or disinfect. Yes, the product in which you are doing the processing, for hygiene, it is very important that the material should be non-reactive. It should be non-reactive means the product should not get in touch with the container and it should not react. So that's why it is very important to select the type of material. For a food processing industry, SS is best. Usually, stainless steel is considered for the food processing industry because of many reasons. Number one, it is non-reactive. It cannot react with the food product, so that's why it is suitable for all type of material handling. Number two, it is corrosion free. The stainless steel is such that it cannot have any corrosion, so that's why it's a corrosion free, and it is non-reactive, right? Keep at all the times in a good order and repair and in a clean and sanitary condition. Whatever may be the situation, say suppose your facility is working for 4 days and then it is not working for another 4 days, that doesn't mean that you can keep your machineries and the line as such. No, you should always clean the line, sanitize it properly, and then you can leave it for whatever days you want. Can be 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. After that, say suppose you are continuing your work after 5 days, then again there should be proper cleaning and sanitation, then only you start the processing. It provides either provided with a properly fitted cover lids or with a clean gauze net. Yes. It permits necessary maintenance, cleaning, and function, of course. The machinery or the infrastructure should not be such that it is not easy to clean. So that's why it is necessary. It should be easy for maintenance and it should be easy for cleaning purpose. Appropriate facility for cleaning and disinfecting, and wherever possible, CIP system shall be adopted. For waste, byproduct, and inedible and dangerous substances shall be specifically identifiable and suitably constructed. All things should be identified. This is very important. Say suppose during processing you have identified some non-conforming material. Okay, it can be dangerous either. So if you're not identifying it, it may create some problems in future. It may create some confusions. Okay, and it can also hamper your good products. So identification is very important. You should always have an identification for your waste, for your byproduct, inedible material, dangerous material, and then action can be taken according to the nature of the product. If required, a wastewater disposal system, effluent treatment plant shall be put in place. Yes, effluent treatment plant can be used. Okay, and effluent treatment plant is such that it reduces uh, whatever the solid content is going in water, in drains, it reduces it, and it further processing is done, and it make the COD and BOD under control. So if your process is such that, say suppose you are manufacturing a potato chips, then after washing, certainly the water, after washing of the potato, the drain water will contain so much of the solid. In such cases, effluent treatment plant is very effective. Second thing, another point number 4 is facilities. Potable water supply. If you are using water as a ingredient, it has to be a drinking water only. You cannot use water in your process which is not drinkable. Number 1. Number 2, there should always be an adequate facility for cleaning, disinfection, and equipments. The the cleaning and disinfection, the method which you are following for cleaning and disinfection, that always has to be as per your product. Say suppose you are manufacturing some dairy product, a pasteurized milk line, then the cleaning and disinfection will be done by CIP. On the other hand, if you are having a wheat flour manufacturing, then the cleaning and disinfection mode will not be CIP because it is not a closed line. Okay. So in this case, there has to be a different plan. Say suppose a cleaning might be possible externally, but for the big mills, the cleaning from inside may not be possible. Okay. Many machines are there which needs to be open for disinfection. So in that case also, daily disinfection is not possible. So all this thing we have to consider. After that, there has to be adequate facility for washing of a raw material. For raw material, proper washing is very important because raw material is always carrying some physical hazard or some other extraneous material. So that all has to be removed because it will definitely hamper the quality of a finished product. Proper drainage and waste disposal. Yes, proper drainage and waste disposal should be there. If there is a proper drainage and a waste disposal, then there is always a less chance of a product contamination. Personal facilities and toilets. The toilet number should always be appropriate to the number of employees. Say suppose you are having a 10 member, then there has to be one toilet at least. When we are increasing, that number may increase. So that all we have to consider. Air quality and ventilation, yes. The air quality report is very important. And then, sorry, for the ventilation purpose, what we can do, we can have AHU, right? We can have a natural air circulation system, but it has to be inappropriate with the characteristic of a finished product. And then lighting. Lighting can be measured with the help of lux meter, and the lux should be appropriate. Say suppose in your operation it require inspection, it requires sorting, it requires physical evaluation. In such cases, there has to be minimum 500 lux. If the light is not appropriate, we may not be able to detect the undesirable product. Therefore, there has to be a proper lux lighting. Facilities, special stone flooring to avoid slippery and easy cleaning with machineries to improve hygiene. Either we can go for the stone flooring or we can also go for the epoxy paints. The epoxy paint, the beauty of epoxy paint is that it does not react with the food product. It provides the smooth texture and the food material will not stick to this. It provides an easy and comfortable cleaning of the product. So that's why it is in high demand by the many of the food processing industry. Drainage should always be covered whether it is inside drainage or outside drainage. This all the topic on drainage we have already discussed. Like it should always be having a sieve with it so that nothing will come from in to out. Facilities. Other facilities, it includes the hand wash station, locker room. Hand wash station, we have earlier also discussed. We can also say it like hygiene station. All right. So it includes a liquid soap has to be there, running water should be there. Then there has to be a hand dryer for drying the hands. After that, one can apply a sanitizer and then go inside. There has to be some locker room. The importance of locker room is that in the subsequent slides, we will see what are the things which one should not wear. But if you are following a locker system, then you can say your employee that they can they can keep their belongings and put their bags inside the locker. Then another thing, we don't want that any worker should not eat the food inside the premises. And how we can avoid this? By allowing their tiffin boxes or the food carriers into the locker. They can place it here and then their tiffin would be safe and there will be a clean grass environment. There can be the waste categorization with the dedicated container. This green and blue, most of us knew that green has to be used for the wet material. That is that is the thing, that is the place, okay, where one keeps the belongings. And yes, now we can discuss on the food operation and control. Food operation, procurement of the raw material. Raw material is such something which plays a vital role in the finished product quality. Your raw material has to be a very good quality, otherwise it cannot have a required finished product output. So that's why procurement of raw material has to be done from the FSSAI registered organization. The specification of the raw material should be clear. The raw material should always be of a good quality. Yes, so these all things we have to consider. Storage of raw material and food. Say suppose you have procured the raw material which is very good in quality, but you have placed it in such a way that while storage itself, it got broken or it got shrinked or it got damaged, then in that case, the quality of raw material would get diminished. So that's why the raw material procurement, the good quality raw material procurement is important, as well as its storage is equally important. Food processing, preparation, packaging, and distribution and service. These all services have their own importance and they all have to be considered while considering a finished product quality. Time and temperature control, yes. Say suppose your product is temperature sensitive. Let us take an example of a paneer. Okay. Then paneer is a material which is temperature sensitive. We have to keep it under refrigerator condition, that is less than 5 degrees centigrade. So if we are not maintaining the temperature, there are some frozen paneer as well. That frozen paneer has shelf life of 6 months when stored at below minus 18 degrees centigrade. But if you're not keeping it, below minus 18 degrees centigrade, then what will happen? Then the time, which is 6 months, it will also get reduced. Why? Because you're not maintaining the required parameters. Then we have food packaging, food distribution, and services. So food packing has to be a food grade packing material. The packing material should be such that it should not react with the product. Then we have food distribution and services. Yes. If your product is temperature sensitive, then it has to be distributed in a temperature controlled way. And if your product is such thing which require further cushioning or extra type of arrangement for protecting it from damage, then distribution has to be in such a way that it will be safe. Let us check few more things about the raw material procurement. We should always procure raw material from the reliable and known supplier. Label a warranty in Form E. Form E is form of guarantee, and it includes all the necessary information which is already mentioned in the, which is commonly mentioned in the invoice, that is name of product, quantity, its rate, its type or its grade, its date, all these things. So you can ask for the form of guarantee, that is Form E, from your raw material supplier. Conforms to all regulation and standard laid down under the FSS Act. Whatever raw material you're taking, you should always take the material which follows the FSS Act. Say suppose, let us take an example of milk. Milk is a liquid which is derived from the milch animal. Okay. But if some other milk is there, if some other one other person is selling the milk which is not derived from the milk animal, and it is been artificially made by mixing few of the harmful ingredients, then certainly that product you cannot claim as milk, and that product you certainly cannot use as an ingredient in your any of the recipe. So that all we have to consider. Record of raw material and source of procurement. You should always keep the record of raw material. What are its sources, from where you procured. Check for the visible deterioration and off odor and for any foreign matters. The visible deterioration we can at least check. Say suppose we are procuring a raw material, some vegetables, then we can physically check how much are the dents over the surface of the product. It can be cauliflower, it can be capsicum, whatever. Does it has any off odor? Does it has any foreign material like too much soil or having some other purees? So that all should not be there. Tankers, if you're procuring a raw material in form of tankers, that is milk, oil, water, etc., it should be checked for the seal integrity. Mostly dedicated tankers shall be used. Dedicated tanker means if a tanker which is there, which is being used for milk, should always be dedicatedly used for milk, not at all for any other purpose like water or anything else. Purchased in quantities that are corresponding to the store and preservation capacity. Sometimes it happens in some seasons the raw material prices gets reduced. So many times the people, they buy the product and then they store it for the longer period, especially for those period in which it is probable that raw material price will increase. But they are not having a proper storage facility. Then what can happen? If you have procured the material too much and you're not having the storage facility, then it might be the scene that after some times whole of your material will get collapsed, or it will get deteriorated, the quality will diminish, so the price will be saved. So that's why the procurement should be in such a way, in such a manner that it should always meet your capacity. If you're asking or if you're buying a packed product, then you should always check for the expiry date, best before date or use by date. Then you can also check for the package integrity. What are the storage conditions? That means where you are supposed to keep that product. Storage instructions has to be followed, whatever been mentioned on the package. The temperature, humidity, that all has to be maintained. FIFO and FEFO. FIFO means first in, first out. FEFO means first expired, first out. So proper stock rotation of the system has to be there. The food material shall be stored on the brags pallets, well above the floor level and away from the wall. This is the best storage practice. If you are not following the storage practice, then there is a high chance where raw material will deteriorate. Okay, so that's why it should always be away from the wall, above the ground. In this picture, you can see it is a bad storage practice in which on the left hand side the material is stacked along with the wall. It is a bad storage practice. It should always be away from the wall. There should always be one red zone. In red zone, what you can do, say suppose a product is there which is susceptible, okay, or which is suspicious, and you're not sure whether it is good or bad, then you can keep the product at that place. What will be the benefit of doing this? The product which you will place it in another place, in that case you will not get, in that case you will be having a surety that no person will use that product. But in case you're not having any red zone and you're keeping the good material as well as bad material quite together, then yes, there is a high chances where your good material will get mixed with the bad one, and certainly it will affect the quality of the product. Then we have management of supervision, a detailed standard operating procedure, that is SOP, for the processing of the food as well as its packing, dispatch, storage will be developed for proper maintenance, for the proper management, which in turn would help in identifying any problems and the exact point so that the damage control would be faster. So this have to be maintained. The food business shall ensure that technical manager and supervisors have appropriate functions, qualifications, knowledge, and skills on the food hygiene principle and practices to be able to ensure food safety and quality of its product, judge food hazards, take appropriate preventive and corrective action, and to ensure effective monitoring and supervision. Supervision is something which is very important. When a work is analyzed and it is supervised by the competent person, then certainly it will affect the quality of work. Another requirement with respect to hygiene is food testing lab, food testings. So the food testing has to be there. Whenever we are testing anything, then only we can understand whether it is okay or not, or we can say whether it is as per the standard or not. So food testing facility has to be there. And in case a factory is not having in-house facility, there it can be done from the outsourced NABL lab. Audit documentation and records. A periodic audit of a whole system according to the SOP shall be done to find out any fault or gap in the GMP or GHP system. This periodic audit of the whole system, it can be done by some internal expert, or some external agencies can be hired who are having expertise in this, and they can also perform the same task. So for this, appropriate record should always be maintained, like food processing, preparation, production, cooking, storage, distribution, services, food quality, laboratory test results, cleaning and sanitation, pest control, and product recall shall be kept and retained for the period of 1 year or the shelf life of the product, whichever is more. These are few documents which might be, which is usually being used by FSOs when they come for the audit to your premises. Another one of the very important aspect of hygiene is pest control. If there is no pest control, hygiene can never be maintained. So pest control is a very important point. Cleaning and sanitation plays a very important role. Cleaning and maintenance plays a very important role. The premises where we are going to work, we have to create a proper cleaning schedule, and schedule can be made as per the requirement of the design of the facility, as per your product quality, competency of employees, training of the employees can be done on this. So all this thing has to be maintained. Pest control system can be based on 4D method, that is deny entry, deny food, deny shelter, and even if nothing will happen in all these 4D, then we can opt for the destruction. For maintaining hygiene, there are some do's and don'ts which one has to follow, like never store chemical near food, right? That cannot be happen. Never leave chemicals on or near to the food premises area, because what can happen, say suppose you have left any chemical, and you probably might be knowing that what should be the use, but there might be some other worker who will do some cleaning or anything purpose. So in that case, what will be the outcome? By coincidence, there might be that product will go product will go into finished product, or it will get spoiled. So that should not be done. Store chemicals in their originally labeled container. Yeah. Now let's discuss about the personal hygiene. This is one of the very important topic. Personal hygiene plays a very important role. More than 50% contribution is towards the personal hygiene only. The personal hygiene, which is associated with the food handlers, has to have a very important role. Let us first discuss about the health status. It says that no person suffering from the disease shall be allowed to enter into the food handling area. And if they are having anything, they should immediately report their illness to the management. If in any case a person is not having, not fit for working, then say suppose the person is working and during work hours only he feel that he's not feeling well, then he has to immediately inform to his senior staff, senior management, and then a rest can be granted for the same. Then all the food handlers who are working into the premises, they should undergo medical examination. What is that? Medical examination means an exam which will be done by a practitioner doctor, registered doctor, and he will evaluate the food handlers on these topics, which includes physical examination, eye testing, skin examination, compliances with the schedule of the vaccination, okay, and any other test. If a doctor feels that that is required, then that can be done. So all food handler has to be examined by the doctor on these level. Some behavior and personal cleanliness aspect which is important for the personal hygiene is a proper suitable clothing has to be wear. Okay, we will discuss this in further picture. All right. What we should not do? We should not eat anything, any chewing gum or a masala or anything while handling a food. We should not taste the food while cooking. Spitting should not be done. Smoking should not be done while cooking. So this all has to be maintained. Yes, this is very important and a beautiful picture which shows what we have to do and what we have not to do. It is given in English as well as Hindi both. This picture you can see, it shows your hairs when you are wearing a cap. Your hair should not be out of the cap. It should always be inside the cap. Say suppose you are having any wound, it should always be closed. You should not carry any nail paint, or nails should not be long. Okay, the cloth should not be toned. Toned cloth should not be there. Slippers should always be closed. Okay, you should always wear a safety shoes, not the sleepers. And the upside pocket should not be there, because there is always a chance if you bend, the product may fall uh, down. So that's why there should not be any upper pocket, so that if there is no pocket, no one can keep anything. So this is a very beautiful picture which shows what are the different things which is very important to be noticed and very important to be followed in a food processing industry with respect to the personal hygiene. When we have to wash our hands, these are the different ways. What are these? Before and after handling a food, after sneezing, coughing, or scratching, okay, after using a handkerchief, yeah, after touching your body parts, face, nose, hair, thread, or anything. Then you have to wash your hands after eating or taking breaks, after smoking, okay, after putting gloves. Yes, after putting gloves is important. And after cleaning activities, say suppose you're cleaning something, then after that, before serving food and beverages, yes, and from veg to non-veg, non-veg to veg, and of course after using the urinals. These are the 8 steps to wash our hands. This ensure that all of the portions, all of the parts of the hands, it gets cleaned properly. So the top of the palm, in between the fingers, from the back, the base of thumb, back of the fingers, then the round portion from fingernails, wrist. We should not forget wrist, and then a proper wiping or a air drying has to be done. This is another good picture which says you should not use perfume. There should not be any open cut. Mobile phone should not be used. The cap should be you should wear the cap properly. All hair should be intact inside, and all the nails should be cut and trimmed. Visitor management is also very important. Whatsoever discipline is being followed by the inside worker, all thing the same discipline should always be followed by the visitors, right? Consumer awareness, yes. In the legal metrology, we will discuss something on the material and the legal part. Here, the product consumer awareness, like how much should be the numerical value of the product. It says like up to 50 grams or ml, the numerical height should be 1 mm. Above 50 grams or ml, it should be 2 mm. Above 200, it should be 4. and above 1 kg, it should be 6 mm. So this is the maximum thing. What language can be used for labeling? For labeling purpose, Hindi or English. These two language can be used in India for the labeling purpose, and provided that nothing therein contained shall prevent the use of any other language in addition to the language required under this. So suppose you are using English, then it is not compulsory that you have to write Hindi and English both. You can use English also, or if you want to use any local language, that also you can use. Pre-packed food shall not be described or presented on any label. That is false, misleading, or deceptive. That should not be there. Then label in a pre-packed foods shall be such that should not become separated from the container. You should always paste the label in such a way that the product, it will be intact with the product. It will not get separate. Yes, then FSSAI number has to be printed in this way. A proper logo should be there and the license number of your facility. These are the 12 points which needs to be covered on the pack. And you cannot, and all of the commodity has to follow this. Yes, all of the food item has to follow this thing. What are the different things which are included in this? It includes name of the food, list of ingredients, information, declaration, manufacturer address, net content, date of manufacturing, lot number, instructions, and country of origin. Yes, training also plays a very important role. The food business shall ensure that the handlers are aware of their roles and responsibility in the protecting food from the contaminants or deterioration and have a necessary knowledge and skills. So a necessary knowledge and skill has to be there. Otherwise, it is difficult to run a food business without having the required knowledge. So that was all about the hygiene principles, hygiene standards. Now let us discuss about the FSSAI standard and regulation. The Food Safety and Standard Act 2006 is act to consolidate the old previous legislations. So before this, other acts were there like milk and milk products, edible flour, solvent extracted oil, edible oil packing order, okay, vegetable oil product order, meat food product order, fruit food product order, fruits product order. So these product orders were very specific to a single product. But after that, later on, the food scale up has a scale up, and all of these orders, they get combined, and then we have this Food Safety and Standard Authority of India, that is FSSAI. At present, there are total 21 regulations. 6 principal regulations were notified in August 2011. Some came in force on 5th of August 2011. 5 new regulations were notified in 2016 and 17. Another 11 regulations were added between 2018 and 2020. Yes, now let us discuss about regulation number 1. The regulation number 1 is about licensing and registration of the food business. So each and every food business operator have to take a license, or the small license can be the registration. But what is the eligibility criteria? The eligibility criteria is based on 3 parts. Number 1, type of business, turnover of the business, and capacity of the business in metric tons. Say suppose type of business is exports, but their production capacity is less than 2 metric ton. But as per law, as per this act, all exporters have to take the central license, irrespective of their capacities. Okay. And the businesses who are having more than 20 CR, then they all have to take the central license, and less than them, the distributor retailers less than 20 CR, they have to take the state license in their prevailing state. And now when we talk about the type of FSSAI license, there are 3 types. One, basic license, or we call it registration. The registration is given to those who are having the turnover of less than 12 lakhs per annum. Then state license. State license and the central license. It is being given to those who falls under the category of license that is more than 12 lakhs per annum. And then whether they will fall in state or in central, that all depends upon the capacity and the turnover. Now let us talk about regulation number 2. Food product standard regulation. Food product standard and food additives regulation. It also came in 2011. This standard describes product and provide a specification of every ingredient, right? This regulation provide detailed standard of the various food product. It prescribed the limit of the various food additives used across the different food groups and lays down microbiological requirement of different foods. It essentially consists of a physical, chemical, and microbiological standard of a different food product. In this particular regulation, food product standards have been defined. The food product standard means it has all the definitions of the food, like what is milk, to whom you will call it as wheat flour. Okay, so everything like pasta, wheat flour, milk, and this different type of fruits, the pickles, vinegar, everything it has. So the definitions is described, and to which product you will call it as what, that all thing is also identified. Then we have regulation number 3. The regulation number 3 talk about prohibition and restriction of the sales. That is regulation 2011. This regulation gives the guidelines define which product has restrictions for sale and not allowed for the sale. Prohibition, the one of the example can be oil. You cannot oil, add a multiple of oil and sell it in terms of oil. No, if you're adding 2 or 3 types of oil, you have to mention what are the different oils which you have added and the name. So this is all about the prohibition, what you cannot sell. Regulation number 4 is packing and labeling regulation. Basically, it came in 2011, and this standard talk about packaging as well as labeling. Later on, the labeling regulation has come in 2018, and one more packing and display regulation has come in 2019. So now, for packing and labeling, we have two further regulation. One is packaging. It talks about the packaging, and another is labeling and display, which has been published in 2020 itself. So this particular regulations is talk about the printing articles. With the growing concern over the health risks that are involved in the consumption of the packet food, the FSSAI is now stringent on the regulatory norms related to FSSAI packaging and labeling requirements. Now, regulation number 5, contaminants, toxin and residues. The regulations provide information on the maximum residual limit of the contaminants, toxins and residues. These regulations provide information particular related to the harmful substances which are present in the product. Like it prescribes that the chemicals that are described in the monograph of the Indian Pharmacopoeia when used in food shall not contain metal contaminants beyond the limit. Indian Pharmacopoeia contains all of the ranges. It contains all of the different medicine or the herbal products which you can use. Sorry, the chemical parts. So this, if you're using anything, so say suppose some toxin level is high or the heavy metals or the residues is high, then every product, how much contaminant and toxins and the residues can have, that all range, that all table is given, and that is very beautifully defined in regulation number 5. Regulation number 6 talks about laboratory and sampling analysis. This regulation, it provide a procedure of sampling and analysis along with the sample size of a various article of food. How much should be the sample size and how we have to use it, like how much product has to be derived from how much sample, that all particular thing is defined in this regulation. Now regulation number 7, food or health supplement, nutraceutical, food for especially dietary uses, food for special medical purposes, functional food and novel food. This particular regulation, it covers all these 8 categories, and the limits, how much should be the limits, how much proportions can be added for this, what should be the characteristic of the product which is being used for the special dietary purpose or the therapeutical purpose. So all this thing is defined in this regulation. Regulation number 8, food recall procedure. These regulations shall apply to the food or food product that are determined and prima facie considered unsafe or else may be specified for the food authority. The recall product are generally those products which FSSAI may think that if it is consumed by the masses, then it may create a severe health problem. So that is the recall. It also including that processed by the consumer which may pose threat to the public health or food that violate the act. Okay, sometime it may happen that recall may be initiated by the consumer and then authority may take it over. So recall regulations talks about the formalities, what should be the way of taking a recall, how the government has to has to participate, where the FBO needs to communicate with the authorities or the department. So all that thing is defined in the regulation number 8. If I talk about regulation number 9, that is import. This regulation describes about the licensing of a food importers, clearance of the imported food by a food authority. Okay, then it also in section 25 of the FSS Act 2006 stipulates that all imports of the article of the food are subjected to the provision of the Act. The selective sampling and testing of the food article on the basis of risk profiling done by FSSAI is implemented at the custom ICE. So this thing FSSAI is already following. Regulation number 10, that is approval for non-specific food ingredients. This regulation describes process for approval of novel food not having a specification laid down in FSSR. In the new regulation, FSSAI has defined non-specified food as any food other than proprietary food or the food ingredients, including additives, processing aids, and enzymes for which standards have been specified in any regulation made under the Act. The novel food or the non-specified food means those foods for which FSSAI standards have not been defined. So that all things are included in this, and it may also include some enzymes or the processing aids which are not specified. So how to take approval from FSSAI and how to how to do business with that product, that all thing is defined in the regulation. Organic food. Nowadays we take many products which is there in the market, but they may not be having approval. So if you're claiming anything, then there has to be approved from the government authority. This regulation recognizes two systems of the certification. One is PGS, that is Participatory Guarantee Scheme. It has been implemented by Ministry of Agriculture and Farmer Welfare. And second one is NPOP, that is National Program for Organic Production. It is implemented by the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. This regulation ensures integrity of organic food products, helps in controlling unscrupulous practices in the market. Many persons are there who are just selling the organic product, though they are not organic. So this type of practices, to have a note on this, to have a hold on this, the government has its own regulation, which we call it as a Jaivik Bharat logo. And when a particular product is truly certified by FSSAI, then it will be having a Jaivik Bharat logo, and that says that yes, it is actually organic. Alcoholic beverages, yes, this regulations came in 2018. Before that, alcoholic beverages were not involved under food FSS, but yes, now this time it is been considered as a food, and it also has to follow the FSSAI rule. It also specifies the specific requirement for the labeling in addition to the packing. Okay, the specific labeling declaration for the alcoholic drinks includes alcohol content, labeling of standard drinks, not to contain any nutritional information. Okay, Ideally, alcoholic drinks, uh, they does not provide any nutrition to the body. So nutrition information is not there. No health claim should be there that it is good for heart, or drinking this may have benefit on the health. That type of claim is strictly prohibited. Restriction on the word like non-intoxicating, or the words implying similar meaning on the label of the beverage of containing more than 0.5 percentage of alcohol by volume is absolutely not allowed. Labeling of the wine, allergen warning, statutory warning, etc. is very important. So this regulation talk about the alcoholic beverages. Then we have food fortification. Food fortification regulation number 13. It is a scientifically proven, it is a cost-effective process, is scalable and sustainable global intervention that addresses the risk of issue of a micronutrient deficiencies. The micronutrient deficiencies, it creates so much of the health problem, especially in the developing countries, and with with the help of fortified product, it is very uh, uh, proven way and very easy method by which we can overcome with the deficiency of the micronutrients. So if the product is having plus F logo, that means it is having the it is fortified with the essential micronutrients, and this micronutrients includes iron, vitamin B12 and folic acid for rice and wheat. In milk and edible oil, it includes vitamin A and D. In double fortified salt, it includes iodine and iron. Okay, so these all are the micronutrients, and the it is used for the malnourishment, to overcome the malnourishment. Regulation number 14. Regulation number 14 talks about the food safety auditing. To strengthen the food safety surveillance system, FSSAI has in audits of the food business through private auditing agency. In order to cultivate and foster the growth of compliances culture, FSSAI is enabling compliances through private recognized auditing agencies. The food safety audits, which reduces the regulatory food safety inspections controlled by the central or state licensing authorities. Satisfactory audit will lead to less fluent regulatory inspection by a central or state licensing authority, except the regulatory sampling. This will strengthen food safety surveillance system and encourage self-compliance while at the same time assuring a safe food to the consumer. Now, regulation number 15, it talks about recognition and notification of laboratories. Food testing and analysis is an essential part of the food safety ecosystem to assure that the food is safe to consume. For the same, FSSAI recognized and notified NABL accredited food labs are there, and under Section 43 of FSS Act 2006. FSSAI is also recognizing foreign laboratory to reduce the time in clearance of the food consignments at the ports. FSSAI approved notified lab as National Reference Lab, which we call it as NRLs, and as ancillary facility to NRLs are ANRLs for their specific purposes. Sometimes our National Reference Laboratory may not have that facility, so for that ancillary facilities are being used. Now, regulation number 16, it talks about the advertisements and the claims. These regulations are aimed at establishing fairness in claims, advertisements of food products, and make food business accountable for such claim advertisements so as to protect consumer interest. Like firms running a food business cannot use the phrases like natural, fresh, original, or traditional, authentic, genuine, real on the food labels, bearing some acceptations. Such restrictions are primarily aimed at restriction at an open-ended use of these products by a food business on frivolous grounds. Regulation number 70, it talks about the packing regulation. The general requirement, it is laid down about the packing material, which is standard packing material can be used for the different product. The regulation may lay down the specific requirement regarding the material and substances that are intended to come in contact with the food product. This describes the specification of the material, which can be used as a packing material of the food article. Regulation number 18, recovery and distribution of surplus food, to establish the uniform national regulation to protect organization and individuals when they donate food in the food good faith. So this surplus is food when it is donated by the established food manufacturers to the needy people. So that has to be accounted for the tracing as well. To encourage the donation of the food and grocery product to a non-profit organization for distribution to the needy individuals. This describes how surplus food can be distributed, considering both food safety and food wastage. So, food safety, how we can see, like it has to be distributed in a good manner so that the food should remain same. At the same time, we can reduce the amount of food wastage. If it is being consumed by the needy people, then certainly the food is not getting waste. Regulation number 19, safe food and balanced diet for children in school. This regulation came in this year only. It provides a fundamental idea and makes clear that what food are healthy and what is not healthy for the school children. So in line with this regulation, another act has also come that in the near premises of the food or inside the food canteen, unhealthy food cannot be sold. Okay, and this is the responsibility of the food authority to ensure that safe food and the balanced diets on the school premises. Promotion of the safe food and balanced diet in and around the school campus should be there. Food marketing and advertisement and the selling to the children in the school. We have to consider that only safe and healthy food has to be given to the school going children, and the unsafe and the unhealthy food should be prohibited for selling inside the school premises as well as around the campus. This is also a new regulation which came into 2020, food for the infant nutrition. This particular regulation focuses more and more on the infant food. This regulation includes the standard for the infant formula for special medical purpose, especially food for infants involved with the error of metabolisms. So the infants which are itself having a low immunity, so which type of food should be given to them, what should be the nutritional aspect for them, that all has to be considered. Standard for premature infant milk substitute, lactose-free and lactose and sucrose-free infant milk substitutes under the infant formula for special medical purposes. There are also a standard for food for infant based on the traditional food ingredients. And last but not least, the regulation number 21, that is labeling and display regulation. This came in force this year only, and this is a very beautiful, a different type of regulation in which a multiple aspect of labeling has came into picture. This regulation describes the labeling requirement of pre-packed foods and display of the essential information on the premises where food is manufactured, processed, served, and stored. Food service establishment with a central license or outlets at 10 or more regulation sorry, will have to mention the calorific value, that is in KL, per serving or per size against the food items displayed on the menu cards or the boards or the booklets. Okay, it is a new type of thing. Then purposed color coded labeling which was intended to enable consumer to identify HFSS, that is the product which is having high fat, salt and sugar products. So a separate color coding has to be there on the product with the which is having high fat or high sugar or high salt, because these three things are specifically creating a uh, cre- uh, creating some disturbance or some problem with the health. So they have to control all these three particularly. Functional classes for the food additives shall be declared together with the specific names or recognized international numbers as specified in FSS, and it has to be mentioned on the list, like INS number. So these all things has to be mentioned. Yes. Now let us come to Weights and Measurement Act. An act to establish and enforce a standard of the weights and measurement, regulate trade and commerce in the weights, measures and other goods which are sold or distributed by the weight, measure or numbers, and for matter connected therewith or incidental thereto. So this is act with in which the trade is done with weights or measure or number. Let us talk about the legislation. The Standard of the Weights and Measurement Act, it came in 1976. Then for the packet commodity, it came in 1977. The Standard for the Weights and Measures, the Enforcement Act, it came in 1985. And the General Rules, it came in 1988. The Legal Metrology Act 2009 has came into effect after its publication in the official gazette on 14th Jan 2010. It replaces all the previous uh, act which is related with the weights and measures. Yes. So this Legal Metrology Act, the act which came in 2009, it replaced all the previous act and the Enforcement Act of 1985. Appointment of the government approved test centers for verification of weights and measure has been done after this act. Companies has to nominate a person who will be held responsible for the breach of provision of the act. Simplified definition of the packed commodity has been came up and it has been enforced. Most stringent punishment for violation of provision are some of the new features of the act. The Legal Metrology Act, it says the rule number 2H of the Packed Commodity Rule 2011 defines principal display panel in relation to the packet means the total surface area of the pack where the information required under these rules are to be given in the following manner, namely all the information could be grouped together and given at a one place, or a pre-printed information could be grouped together and printed and given in a one place, or online information grouped together in a one place. Let us understand this with the help of example. Say suppose you have a circular tin in which different it's a circular, so every surface is equal. So the principal display panel would be something which contain the product name, net quantity, or something which is related to that. Okay, so that will be a principal display panel. The back panel will be the information panel in which nutritional fact, ingredient list, name and address, all these things will be put together. So this is in case of the circular tin. If I talk about the any packet of chips, okay, any rectangular package, okay, so this which is the firm filled seal machine produces. That in that case, the principal display panel will be the one in which a product name will be mentioned on a big letters. A big letters, product name will be mentioned. And information panel will be what? Information panel will be the back one in which you have to mention all of the FSSAI requirements or the legal compliances. Legal metrology, packed commodity rule this. The mandated declaration which has to be there. It includes one, name and address of the manufacturers, packer and importer. So this all things has to be mentioned. Then common and generic name of the commodity. So the common name you have to mention. Say suppose wheat flour or atta. This you can mention. But in case you are having a multigrain atta, in a wheat flour you have added the flour of corn as well as the maize or anything else, then you cannot call it a wheat flour. Then it is a multigrain atta. So this common and the generic name of the product has to be there. It should not be misleading. The net quantity has to be mentioned, month and year of the manufacturer, pack and importer. In many cases, specifically in the food, the date has to be mentioned. Retail sale price in form of maximum retail price, inclusive of all taxes, should be mentioned. Consumer care number, or you can say a customer care number, that should be declared. Country of origin. So this is as per law, all things should be mentioned. Rule number 18.5 says no wholesaler, dealer, retailer or other shall obliterate, smudge or alter the retail sale price. Say suppose one has already written something, okay, then you cannot put your own sticker over it to hide that this is not, this is illegal. Now let us check with some examples. Name and address of the manufacturer, importer, packer, exporter, dealer. So the correct example is name and address of the manufacturer and packer, Usha International Limited, West Bengal, uh, village this, address this, and all. Okay, marketed by Usha International, 19 KG Marg, New Delhi, this. Okay. So name and international, Usha International is the one commodity, but manufacturing address is West Bengal and it is marketed by a Delhi, their head office. But incorrect example of this would be marketed and imported by Usha International Limited, registered office, ye, country of origin, China. So this is wrong. The manufacturing address has to be there. Name of the product. So correct example is diesel engine oil, or you can say toothpaste. The incorrect example of this can be Joshila diesel oil. So Joshila might be the brand name, but the name of the product is the engine oil. So either they have to say Joshila, then diesel engine oil. The Joshila is not the name of product. It's the name of brand. We have to incorporate the name of product here. Then in case of toothpaste, refreshing gel. The toothpaste can be in form of gel, but the product name is toothpaste, so it has to be mentioned. Now, quantities of commodity and retail of the component. The declaration of the quantity shall not contain the word less than, more than, average, approximately, etc., which are misleading and give false impression. Statement of the unit of the weight and measurement. 1 kilograms, the unit of weight shall be grams. 1 meter can be centimeter. 1 square meter can be square decimeter. Cubic meter, 1 liter, milliliters, so on and so forth. So it should be same. No number called the dozen, score, gross, great, gross, or like shall be indicated on any packet. Except international numbering system, no other system of units shall be followed in declaring net quantity. Quantities of commodity and details of component. In case of the fabric, okay, of any form, the number and the dimensions of the finished size of such commodity shall be declared like the international system says kilogram means kg, liter means L, meter means M, centimeter is cm. So the same thing has to be followed. It cannot, you cannot alter the nomenclatures of the units. Okay, let's take one more example. On the packet, it should be mentioned the month and year of the manufacturing. Okay, the correct example shows month and year of the manufacturing is November 2011. The incorrect shows manufactured in 2011, month and year of packing November 2011. No, you have to mention the month and the year, and in case of food, it has to be the date as well. So the date also has to be mentioned specifically. A maximum price at which commodity can be sold is maximum retail price. So this MRP shall not be written in fraction in case fraction is less than 50 paisa. except in case of revision of MRP on the lower side, using individual sticker for affixing the label is prohibited. That maximum retail price is 386 inclusive of all taxes. You cannot say maximum retail price rupees 386, local taxes extra. No, it's a wrong. Maximum retail price rupees 386.87. No. This 50 paisa is, in India, especially the currency system, we do not deal in the so much in paisa these days. So it cannot be written in a fraction in case fraction is less than 50 paisa or like 87 paisa. So 87 paisa is not at all possible. So that's why it's incorrect. Yes. Now the area of principal display panel in square centimeter. Minimum height of numerals and the letters in milliliters, and the minimum height of the numerals and the letters when blown, formed or molded on the surface of the container in millimeter. These three aspects we have to understand now. Let us take of the area less than 50 square centimeter. Okay. So the minimum height of the letters should be 1 milliliter. Okay. And minimum height when surface on the container, it should be 2 milliliters. Okay. Let us take another example. If the principal display panel is 100 square centimeter to 500 square centimeter, then minimum height of the numerals should be 2.5 mm. Okay, so this 2.5 mm should be the height of the numerals. And while blowing forming or molded it on the surface of the container, it has to be 4. So this we have to mention, this we have to maintain. Now maximum permissible error in net quantities. Say suppose your product is 50 grams, then maximum error as percentage on declared, it can be 9%, right? So up to 50 grams, you can have 9% plus or 9% minus. Let us take an example of 100 ml. Say suppose your product is having 100 ml. Then in this case, either you can sell your product as 96.5, okay, or sorry, 95.5 to 104.5 ml or grams. But your product should not be less than 95.5 grams. If it is less than, you are declaring that your product is 100 grams, and if it is coming like your product is less than 95.5 gram, then that means it will fall under the penalty. That means it is the underweight product. Even it is 95, it is underweight product. So your product has to comply with this limit only. You cannot obsolete this limit. So whenever you are filling anything, then it has to come under the limit range. All right. So thank you so much for this. Now we have concluded all of this session, and thank you so much.